What's going on, everybody? Feder here from 3D Print SOS. Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we are going to be continuing our direct drive battle season 2, and in this episode we are going to be checking out the Artillery Sidewinder X2. Why this machine? Well, this is a 300/300 machine that has a silent 32-bit board, has obviously a direct drive, has automatic bed leveling, dual Z, and it's supposed to print really fast, help with its robust build. I heard a lot of great things about this machine, and I've tested another artillery machine that will be popping up right up here. It was the yellow Lamborghini inspired Hornet. There was some things I really liked about it, and one thing I didn't was the parts being hard to find for that specific machine. And from Discord, Zumi has a lot of experience with that machine now, and she can attest to that. But one thing I did notice when looking for parts for the Hornet, parts for this machine come up everywhere. They're readily available all over the place, and this seems to have a far bigger following, or I guess a pleased crowd, than the Hornet itself. So I'm intrigued about this machine. One of the other things that's important is, even though the laundry list of amazing things that this has seem to be about the same as a lot of other machines in this category, however, this is priced at around $340. So this was sent to me by a company called Geek Buying. They sell a lot of 3D printers, a bunch of other hobby grade things like RC cars, just for example, scooters, things of that nature. But they definitely have some sales going on their 3D printers, and there's going to be a discount code specifically made for us for this channel. Please look down in the description below if you guys are interested in this machine after this unboxing and test, and get yourself a discount from Geek Buying. So I'm not entitled to say anything from them. They just sent me the machine in for review, so I'm not obligated to say anything polite or nice. So this is just my personal opinion on the machine. So what we're going to do, like we always do on this channel, we are going to unbox this machine. I'm going to show you what it comes with. We're going to set it up in the way that it comes out of the box, and we're just going to throw some filament to it. We're going to check out the things that it has on its SD card, or in this case USB drive, and then we'll see how it does with those. We'll make our own slicing profile. We'll slice our own STL files in Cura, and we'll see how it handles some of those challenges, and then we'll talk about it and we'll see how it stacks up against all the other machines that I am putting it against. So like I said, it's intriguing to know that this laundry list of items can be had for such a low price. In my personal opinion, I think $330, $340 is very affordable for something along these lines, one of these large format machines. What I'm mostly excited about is its speed. It's supposed to print fast, so I'm excited to check that out, and I think you are too. So instead of talking more about it, let's just dive right in. Let me get my blade. Let's get this thing unboxed. All right, I got my blade. All right, let's see what's in reach here. This is the spool holder. The spool holder goes on the top, and it does have these little bearings. I believe there should be tubing that goes in between them. Looks like there's also a filament runout sensor that's attached to this, and it's on kind of like a little, I don't want to say gimbal, but little piece that lets it angle in whichever way. There is, looks like a little tool bag with artillery on it. Let's see what's in here. Okay, we have our spool holders here. We have a volcano style nozzle, some extra wheels, which I have never seen before, some zip ties, and an artillery labeled or branded USB stick. Says 1 gigabyte. All right, so a little bit small, but that's plenty for prints. Okay, we have a large 8 and 10 millimeter key. This will be good for adjusting our wheels that are on the machine. We have a cable if you want to hook it up to a computer. We have an extra ribbon cable, which is actually really nice if these do wear out. I've never worn one of these out. I have several machines that run cables, but really nice to have a spare. Looks like there's a PTFE tube in here, just a little tiny bit of hardware, and some Allen keys. This is actually a nice little pouch. All right, I'm gonna put everything back in for now, except for these. We'll keep those out, and we'll keep the USB out. Let's see, we have the manual. Oh, lots of big text in here. All right, diagrams for everything. Cura profiles, that's good. How to use the touch screen, parts list, and looks like we're getting into different languages. Well, it looks like the rest is just the machine, so I'm gonna set this down and get it out. Big box. All right, so this is the entire top half of the machine. It is pretty tall, actually. One thing that I noticed right off the bat was just how thick the x-axis is here. You know, I love that it's not a 2020. This is actually a 2030, so this is going to be just more rigid just because it has more material. One of the other things I liked about artillery on these things is the way that they did their couplers. These are a floating design. Essentially, this lets the wheels do their job, and it kind of like decouples the motion of the actual Z-rods, because these lead screws are never perfectly straight. So it's really nice when you see these a floating design, which means that you know that the Z-axis is going to be as smooth as they can be on these wheels. Nice branded plastic across the top. I know it's hard to see from this angle because the whole point was that I lay everything down here for you. All right, just while it's over here, I definitely like the cooling fan. That's going to give a lot more cooling than your standard radial fan. We have a 40 millimeter fan for cooling of the actual hot end itself. Looks like we have a geared Titan style extruder, and I see a little BL Touch type of sensor. There's a little sister board that has all your connections right here, a little LED that should be RGB. Lots of features on this machine, which is really nice. And another thing that you can kind of tell here is it has this really interesting plug right over here. So to install this, you just kind of plug it into the top of the machine, which you'll see in a few minutes, and then you just plug that in. But it's nice to see that that whole connection for the ribbon cable is kind of like a almost like a PC style connector. Really nice and clever, and that way there isn't a bunch of different plugs that you have to manage to plug in. Cool, let's get the base out. Nice, feels very robust. Lots of foam in that package too, very nice, like dense foam, not the kind that goes everywhere. One thing to note about artillery machines, it's nice looking. There aren't any bed clips of any kind, but it's still strange to me that the glass bed is glued onto the surface. Or the bed carriage rather, so it's not easily removable. You can probably heat it up, I'm sure you can pry it, but it's just strange. Like for example, if I wanted a PEI sheet, it would be just a little bit more of a challenge to get it on there. We'll keep the paper on. Really nice cable for the bed. Let me see if I can show you. Right here, look at that thick, nice thick cable, super flexible, completely out of the way. Haven't seen that on anything else. Interesting little switch for the end of the bed travel. No flex at all in that. And yet again, this is running on a 20 by 30 extrusion on the bottom, which just means it's wider. The base of the bed is wider, which means it's more sturdy. Looks like it's riding on 6 wheels instead of 4. Very nice. These are all things that we all like to see. Another thing that you can spot in this nice rigid base here that's also metal, it's not plastic, something like the Magician series for example, is there's extrusions in the bottom here, and this is probably what attaches the extrusions to this base. Let's see the bottom here. Wow, okay, that's a much larger fan than I was expecting. How big of a fan is that actually? Oh look, the screws are already in here, the screws that you need to attach. So I just measured, this is an 80 millimeter fan, which is really nice. That means it's going to be a little bit more quiet since it can move a lot more air. It doesn't have to work as hard. Nice little cheeky warranty void decal right over here. You know what, while I have this machine up, it looks like the installation of this machine is quite literally 4 bolts and just some plugs. But while we have it up in this direction, let me go ahead and take this cover off so that we can take a peek at what's under here. I have just the tool for this, the Hoto Tools cordless screwdriver, and that's definitely going to make this much easier. Let's go ahead and cut that sticker with our razor. Just gonna set that down. Here's the fan, just attached really easily in a simple way. Very nice. Okay, so here, let me see if I can zoom this in for you. So right off the bat, there's a couple notable things on here. As you can tell, there is a significantly smaller power supply in here, and the reason is that the bed is actually heated by your actual wall plug. So the bed is going to get up to heat much faster than typical machines because they use their power supply. This one just goes directly to the heated bed itself. So it's an AC heated bed, which is really nice. It keeps the temperatures down here, and it makes this power supply work much less than your typical power supply. I like the way everything is ran through here. There's hot glue holding things in place, and a couple notable things that I see right over here, that everything for the power side is crimped and has ferrules, so huge plus on that. You know, artillery, that is an awesome little sight to see. I know a lot of manufacturers don't pay attention to this, but when your printer's running, you know, a long time over and over again, large prints, and things get really hot and heated for a while, it's just nice knowing that you guys cared enough to put those in there. So that's cool. Another thing that I see on the board that I really like is removable steppers. There's even one more stepper here, stepper driver that you can put in right here, and all the stepper drivers are heat sinked and they are removable and are serviceable, which is really nice, which means if you fry one for some reason, which I guess I've done before actually one time, you can just pop in a new one and replace it. You don't have to swap out the entire board. Like I said, the hot glue holding all the connections in place, the ferrules, everything is secure. There's little strips in place to hold all the wiring instead of just having a few zip ties. This is a well-managed printer. This company paid attention to this stuff, and I commend them for it. This is nice. Everything in here is a pleasure to see. I like that the chassis is braced. Some of the other machines of this size with a big plastic, or even some with metal containers like this for the bottom, don't have this boxed-in chassis. All they have is just these two rails. So this also keeps the printer more rigid and more accurate. So more kudos to Artillery there. All right, I'm going to put the cover back on. Then we'll throw this the upper portion on the machine, and let's see how it does out of the box on whatever test prints it might have on it. Okay, and just like that, the printer is together. Quite literally a 5-minute job. The bed is nice and smooth and has no wobbles, but our carriage is loose. So the way you do that, the way you fix that rather, is you get out your wrench that came with the machine. You go down at the bottom here. Actually, I need to let this go higher. So the dual Z's are belted. So I can just use the belt here to move both axes at the same time. Let's get it a little higher. There we go. Give us some space to work in. And let's see the 10mm side. Let's give it a turn. Another turn. And another turn. Here we go. And we are, there we go. 0 wiggle. That was easy, wasn't it? There we go. That's perfect. Bed's perfect. Everything's plugged in. Another thing I noticed was that there are no side cutters, no snips. You guys know I like when printer manufacturers include these. In case this is your first machine, you don't have to just go out and get more tools. You have everything you need, especially because the other tools in here were quite nice. This is a big machine, 300 by 300 on the bed, 400 on the Z, so it's quite tall. Let's go ahead and peel off this. The glass bed is a typical glass bed with the slight texture to it. Hopefully it's not too sticky like some of the ones I've seen in the past. Looks like there's a 110 volt sticker right on here letting you know that this bed is going to be heated with 110 volts instead of just 24. There's a little QC pass sticker on here as well. There's one right below it on the frame itself. these are all nice little things to see. So far, so good. A little more detail paid attention to on this machine by the manufacturer, which is nice. All right, let's go ahead and power it on, and let's see what's on the SD card. One more thing before we start some prints is I have never seen these menus before or the screen, so why don't we go over it together and see what the firmware is all about. So first, the screen, not the brightest screen, not the sharpest screen, but not bad by any means. It is a little bit small, like for example my fingers are the size of those boxes, but I guess that's okay. That's not necessarily a negative. It's just not the largest screen I've ever seen. You know, I have the BQ-BX machine, and that thing kind of spoils you with a screen. But let's go ahead and see what this stuff is. I'm just going to hit print from the right, and we have a cube and a testing mode. I'll see what both of those are. Let's see if there's any more up and down. It's funny that it says up and down, but this is left and right. That's okay. Let's see what happens when you do click on these. Okay, so it just asks you to print. We'll hit cancel for now. Let's go back. One thing I'm noticing is it's fast and snappy, so that's good. Let's go to set file. What would that be? Micro USB. Okay, so it looks like this is what you set where you're getting the file system from. I don't have an SD card in there, so it's pulling from the USB. Okay, continue. Okay, this is continuing to print. Maybe you can pause it and then start it up later again. I'm not sure. Fan. Hopefully this is just what I think it is. Let's see, that's full. That's half. Okay, and that is the parts cooling fan, and that is pretty quiet. Very nice. Okay. We have a software version at 3.05. Motors off, I'm guessing. Yep. Alright, let's just keep going. That was kind of simple. Are these what you see is what you get? No. Okay, so these are just kind of gauges. Alright, let's go to tools. Alright, let's just go start from heat. Extruder, bed. Okay, pretty typical stuff. This is by how much, so let's do 10. Let's go see how high we can go on the bed. Wow, 150. That's pretty high. So from what I hear, this thing gets up to temp on the bed really, really fast, so that's cool. And now we have a fan start action. I can actually feel some air on my hand that's coming from the bottom here. Yeah, it's definitely exhausting from the bottom. So that's one of my favorite parts about machines like this, or this machine, is that when it's on, it is completely silent unless it needs it for cooling. So that's very nice. All right, let's head back. Actually, let's go to heat. And let's do the extruder. Let's set the extruder to 200 degrees for PLA. Actually, let's go back to bed and turn that down to 60. 60 should be fine. All right, yeah, and just now the hot end fan turned on. Also very quiet. So far, enjoying everything. All right, extrude, I'm guessing this is how much you want to extrude filament-wise. Yep, slow, normal, fast. Yep, this is pretty typical. Okay, this is just moving. Let's move the Z down. Oh, it's in 1, let's see, 10. Wow, that is a fast-moving Z. Holy moly. All right, let's do the Y. Okay, X. Nice motion to the machine. All right, let's go back. Home, we'll do that in a bit. Level, we'll do that in a bit. Change filament, nice, okay. And let's see what's in more. We have the Z offset. This is how you move the Z offset, okay. It's very good. Right now it looks like it's set to, oh, okay, it goes by 0.25. Auto level, that's good. I wonder what the difference between this and level is on the other side. Maybe the first time you do the level and it goes with the wheels, and then you do the auto bed leveling. Save to EEPROM, and this is, oh, this is turning on the LED on the hot end. Okay, nice. Let's turn it on. And I wonder actually if I save it, will it stay lit? Because I do like the LED. All right, so far so good. Let's go ahead and hit home. I gotta say, the speed of the Z-axis is fantastic. Wow, it moves very quickly. Kind of surprising. Holy moly, okay, I'm gonna have to get a camera on this so you guys can see. But that's what we have for the menu. Yeah, nice and snappy. Everything's working nice and quick. I'm gonna go ahead and do the leveling, and then we'll print. the Artillery Sidewinder X2. I'm honestly sad I didn't get this machine earlier. This thing was an absolute pleasure to use, and at the current prices, link down in the description below from geekbuying.com, this thing is really hard to not recommend. It does everything that a lot of machines do, but for lower cost and smoother and easier, and without zero calibration or input of any kind outside of a few buttons to level the machine, for example. I didn't have to turn a single knob. I just threw files on here and hit print, and it has done it phenomenally, is the best word I could put it. That's the TLDR. If you wanted to know, that's it. The machine's great. Huge thank you to Geek Buying for sending this to me for review. Wasn't obligated to say anything, like I mentioned before, or do anything specific. But yeah, they have a large selection of all kinds of electronics, including 3D printers, and at the moment there is a discount code specifically for this channel down in the description below, and also probably one of the cheapest places to find this particular machine. So check that out. As usual, I wrote a pros and cons list, and I would like to start with the cons. Let's just dive right in. So let's talk about the spool holder. Can you see it in the shot? Let me move this up so you can see it just for the specific thing. All right, the spool holder. The spool holder is a little interesting. So one, I like it. I like the fact that you just hang anything on here. It has rollers. It rolls really, really free. That part is good. It is a little bit flimsy, like you can move it a little bit, and having a printer that's 400 millimeters tall, having a full spool on there, it hasn't had an effect obviously on anything, as you can see by the prints, but still, just not confidence inspiring. But that's not really the problem. That's just nitpicking as always, because a lot of these machines are somewhat similar, so we have to nitpick. But the filament runout sensor's position is very strange. As you can see here, the filament goes behind this roller, which kind of means that it grinds on the roller as you pull the filament. It also makes it kind of difficult to put in and take out. Not that you do that very often, but still, you do it all the time, I guess, when you change filament. So then if you rotate this and move it around, you can put the filament on this side of the spool holder, but then it grinds on this side, and it makes it even more awkward. So I don't think the problem is necessarily with a spool holder. I think the problem is with the sensor. Just the way that it's positioned is just strange. I kind of wish it was either over here or maybe mounted off to the side somewhere. I'm not exactly sure of the solution, just spitballing here, but all I know is that something about it is just awkward. And this is the, you know, the worst part of the machine. Everything else, well, we're in the con section. Let's just keep going. All right, the next con is actually how this machine manages to print really fast, and that's a pro. So it's a double-edged sword here, and I guess this is more of an explanation of how they managed to make a 300 by 300 machine like this print a little bit faster than everything else out of the box. Now, let's have this discussion just briefly, because a lot of machines come printing at 50, 60, some even up to 80 millimeters per second out of the box. And yes, you can very quickly and easily make them go faster. But the fact that this machine can go up to 120 or so right out of the box without anything else means while you're tweaking that machine to go faster, you can tweak this machine to go even faster. So they've already spent the time and effort making sure that that's tested, and this thing prints fast. So let me talk about how. So it actually has to do with the glass bed. Obviously the X-axis is nice and sturdy. It's much sturdier than a lot of other machines, and that's all good. The Z is all good. Dual lead screws. They're belted at the top. They have bearings on the top. They have a floating coupler that holds both sides. All that is nice. But for the Y, if you notice, the bed doesn't have any clips on it holding the glass, and that's because the glass is actually not removable. The way that they got the weight down for this bed so that it can go a little bit faster is because typically there is a aluminum carriage that has wheels on it that slides. On top of that is usually springs. And what happens is there is an aluminum plate that sits on top of those springs that you actually level. And that has a heating element and then your bed of choice on top. That aluminum plate, especially in this size, is fairly heavy. They eliminated that. Basically, on top of the springs, there is a self-adhesive heating element. That's a really good heating element. It's very fast, actually. And it is glued directly onto the glass bed. So they eliminated an entire slab of aluminum, which makes it much lighter than normal. Then they gave it 6 wheels on the bottom and a wider track than standard, and then they have themselves a fast printer. Why is this a negative? Well, it's a glass bed, which means at some point something might go wrong, or you might use a razor blade or something to take off a stubborn print and you might scratch it or gouge it, and over time this thing will wear. I don't know how long, but after a long period of time it'll wear, and you're gonna have to make a choice. Either you're gonna have to buy a new plate entirely, this whole assembly from Artillery, or you can just put on a PI spreadsheet with a magnet right on top of there. Yes, it will not heat as fast as direct glass, but that's why I think this is both a negative and the positive. Now, the surface itself has been amazing. I didn't use rafts whatsoever. Not rafts, brims. The brims that were on the original files that came on the card itself, they were there, but I didn't use any, and I didn't need them whatsoever. The bed sticks great. I didn't have to do anything to it, and it leveled very, very nicely. So, like I said, it's negative because if you do have to replace it, it's going to be a hassle. Otherwise, that's how they got the weight of it down so that they can print faster. All right, the next thing is there's a random plug on the side here, on the right side of the machine, that's unoccupied, and it kind of just dangles. I tried to look in the documentation or the manual. I couldn't find anything. I'm not sure what that 3-pronged plug is for. Somebody fill me in if you know, but it's on the right side of the machine and it's there by the stepper and it's just kind of dangling around. Everything on the machine works flawlessly, so it's not something that I missed plugging in. Maybe it's some kind of attachment, but I can't quite figure out what it could be considering how many features this machine has. All right, the next is be sure to level the bed at the temperature that you're printing. So this is actually critical because there isn't an aluminum sheet that also has to hold the heat or can hold the heat. The bed can fluctuate more in temperature because it's just a piece of glass. It is insulated on the bottom, but it is just the glass portion, which means that before you go ahead and hit the level button, which is all automated obviously because of its sensor on there, leveling is literally a push button. But before you do that, have the bed at the same temperature as you're going to be printing at. I think that's going to help make a more accurate leveling mesh. So another thing is there is baby stepping on the machine. So as soon as you start printing, if something isn't quite right, you can just click the button to move the head up or down a little bit, and it seems to save. I had 0 issues with leveling. I didn't even think about it until I had to force myself to think about it, that's great. And look, I'm mentioning positives in the cons, but that's the thing. That's it. That's the only thing that I have negative on my list. Is it has a funky position for the filament sensor, and that's it. This bed, some might think it's a problem. I personally don't necessarily think it's a problem. I think for now it'll last for longer than I probably think, and I'm just trying to nitpick, like I said, because there are similar machines that are typically hundreds of dollars more than this one. So let's just go and go through the pros quickly because there's a lot. It's fast. It's super fast. You can make it faster. You can make some test prints and calibrations to get it honed in even more with acceleration and jerk and have it print even faster. But I see 0 ringing, 0 ghosting, and this thing is cooking at about 120. Sturdy frame, yep, some of the dimensions of the frame are wider. It's metal where it needs to be. It's sturdy where it needs to be. Everything's good there. Huge build area. Yeah, 400Z, 300, but 300 on the X and Y. That is a lot of area to print with. So yeah, definitely decent there, and for the cost of a much smaller machine technically. A fast heating bed. The fact that they put in that smaller power supply and made the bed have AC power, I think that's a really good move. I think more manufacturers should do that. It made the bed super fast to heat. No noise when printing. Right now the machine is on. I don't have to run to turn the machine off, don't have to schedule anything, don't have to use a smart plug to turn it off so that the fans don't run. When it's not hot, when it's not in use, nothing is running except for the screen. And I think that's the way it should be. Yet again, Artillery showing us a great example of just a simple modification that most, if not all, manufacturers should consider doing. Quiet fans. When the fans do run, they're some of the most quiet fans that I have here on any of my shelving or the floor or anywhere around me. I'm literally surrounded by printers, and these fans are definitely some of the quietest on here. Expandable, repairable motherboard. That's actually a huge plus. If you're going to have this thing long term, you can rest assured that your 32-bit motherboard that has silent steppers can be maintained, and the stepper drivers, if something was to go wrong, are repairable, and they're even expandable. There's even more slots on the board, as you saw in the teardown. So that's a huge plus that they're not soldered on there. I could change the drivers. There's just a lot you can do, which is really nice. Crimped connectors with ferrules, that's a huge plus. While I was in there, I was definitely planning on putting on some ferrules and saying, hey, go to the links and buy this set. But I don't need to, because everything is already crimped and the connections for the power are already all set up really well. The wiring management, as you saw in the video, was really well done on this printer, better than most. Floating Z couplers and belted dual Z. I mentioned that earlier. I think that's great. I also think that's another standard feature that most printers should have. I know that if you're getting really down in the budget, you don't necessarily need those if you have a smaller machine, but because this is a 300 by 300 by 400, I think dual Z with belt is a necessity, and I think it is definitely a pro on this machine. The price, it's hundreds cheaper than similar machines. So it's hard for me to say when this video will be out, but if this video comes out after the 28th, this machine costs $330 from Geek Buying. If you use the link and coupon down below, they made a coupon just for this channel, and that is cheaper than majority of places, and they have a US shipping. So definitely check out that link if you're interested in this machine to get yourself the Sidewinder. Geek Buying has your back with this one. That's all on my list. I just want to mention that, like I said, usually around corners like the sharp corners, there's ringing, there's ghosting, there's nothing. Usually the corners peel up when they're sharp 90-degree angles. None of that. The bed is super great. This was zero. There's two files for this container. This is like a Lego container that you can put little figurines in or whatnot. Made it for my daughter. But there's two versions of this. One with small tolerances, one with high. This is small tolerances, and without doing anything else, perfect fitment. This was matte filament by Ceramic, and it printed perfect. This is a little phone holder. These two files were on the SD card, a little cube. Nothing really to say there except for it's great. I'm not sure what in the world this is. But I really like this color by 3IIDMax. All the PLA that I used here, except for the flat, is from 3IIDMax, and they've easily been my go-to, especially if you can buy them in bulk. The prices go down tremendously. Made in the US, shipped from the US. 3IIDMax, my go-to filament. And then finally, let's talk about this. This is the new DJI Avata drone, FPV drone, and this was a cool little file I found that adds TPU to the bumpers in case you're doing any kind of indoor flying, just to protect the walls or just further protect the drone from bumping into things. And this TPU is not only really soft and pliable, but it came out perfect with zero modifications, zero finagling of any kind. There was no brim. It had support, and they came right off. There's no stringing. Guys, this is definitely a easy recommend. Okay, that's enough for me. Oh, one more thing. No, two more things. Okay, two more things. One is, let me briefly mention this awesome cordless screwdriver by Hoto. I really enjoyed using it. This machine I didn't have to put together like a big kit, I guess unfortunately for the tool. But the 4 bolts that I used this on, they were much faster and easier, and I'm glad I have this. You'll be seeing this thing a lot more on the channel, and it's just a pleasure to use because it's so nice and high quality. The only other thing I want to mention is these shirts. If you check out the page, there should be a store button next to the community tab, and in that store I made shirts available. They're not sold by me directly, they're sold by the company that makes those shirts. They're going to deal with payments, shipping, and printing. And I have the price set up as low as I can. I only have the profit set at $2 on both of those items. So if you buy it, you're directly helping the channel with $2, and you get yourself a cool shirt to represent the channel with and show off your love for 3D print SOS. So if you're interested in those, I know a few people have mentioned it. They are there for you to buy or not. Up to you. I thought it was a cool option to have for the channel. So that's it. Patreon. You get to see everything early. You get to talk to me directly. Check out the Patreon for the channel. Discord as well, completely free. Have conversations with like-minded people. Contests on there, giveaways on there, troubleshooting on there. You can talk about the artillery Sidewinder X2. Man, this was a cool one to do, and it's over now, which means I get to put it to the side and have it print a bunch of stuff for me. Alright, I think that's all for me today, and as always, I'll see you down in the comments. Later.